I watched all of Ninjago in 10 days. For those of you who don't know, that's about 50 hours of content. It shakes out to about 20 episodes a day, except for when partway through you get a debilitating headache and can't watch any episodes that day. It was a lot. Now, the reason I'm doing this is that I'm making a mega analysis video. So I took detailed notes about the female characters specifically while I was watching. But sometimes I couldn't help myself. There were certain things in the show that were so random or good or weird, or I just had an idea and I had to write down a note that wasn't related to the topic at hand. And instead of just keeping those to myself, I figured I'd share all of those with you today. Now, the first one is actually about the first ever episode of Ninjago, the first pilot episode. There's this film theory about the acousmetra. Basically, it says that if a character exists only off-screen, they become more powerful. You hear their voice coming from off-screen, you usually see the person that they're talking to, but because you can't see them, you don't know what they look like, you don't know where they are, that means you don't know how powerful they are. The first episode of Ninjago does this really well. At the end of the episode, we hear Garmadon's voice from off-screen talking to Samukai.
Good. Then my brother was there.
His voice is kind of echoey and it's coming from everywhere. And that's what makes Garmadon so intimidating in the pilot episodes. You don't know what he looks like, what his powers are, or even where he is. And that's why I think Garmadon is more effective in the pilots as a villain than the rest of the show. His shadowy form lends a sort of acousmetric air to him even after we've seen him, because we know he can move through shadows, he can look like anyone, and not knowing where the character is makes them more powerful. Anyway, a little bit of film theory for you there. The next thing also has to do with Garmadon. At the end of season 1, after they've destroyed the Great Devourer, Garmadon like runs off with the golden weapons. And the reason we know that is that they see his footprints, which is just hilarious to me because they're Legos. Everybody has the same footprints. So they just kind of look over at these square footprints leading I don't even know which direction because they're square footprints. And they're like, oh yeah, those are Garmadon's footprints. He was running away. I don't know. I thought it was funny. Next unrelated note. In season 2, we learned that Zane's inventor, Dr. Julian, is still alive. The skeletons brought him back to life to build vehicles for them. But Dr. Julian is like so ashamed of what he's done. He's like super apologetic. He's like, I don't know if you're ever gonna be able to forgive me for creating the skull motorbike.
I was afraid if you found out what horrible things I'd created, you would think I was a monster.
And it's like, dude, it's okay. They're vehicles with giant skeleton faces on it. It's not the worst thing to happen to the world. And like later in the show, Dr. Borg invents like a freaking time machine to destroy everything. And he's like, nah, we good, right? Because I was just forced to do this. We're good. This next one's a small thing. There's this line in season 3 that is just forever ingrained in my head.
Cool, beyond cool. Uber mega. I'm like, wow.
I don't know why. The delivery is just very unique and
I'm like, wow.
I also wrote down that the season 4 intro slaps.
Just jump up, get back, whip around and spin.
It's the only intro I wrote that for. It's my favorite. Like, it's so good. And the full version doesn't sound exactly the same, which has always bugged me. And it's a shame because the intro is so good.
Get back, whip around and spin.
It's just good. Next thing. It's always Jamonikai Village. Whenever the Serpentine launch an attack, it's always Jamonikai Village first, and it seems very weird to me. Like, it's a very small, lone village on a mountaintop. It doesn't seem strategically important, but they attack it first every time. The original Serpentine Wars, it was first. Lloyd attacks it first, and the new Serpentine Wars in season 4, also first. And it's just weird, and I don't get why. The next one is another line delivery that is forever stuck in my head. The way they say it, it's all so frantic and everywhere, and it's a ghost of Sensei Yang. Next point, in season 7, episode 8, at the end of the episode, the ninja are kind of celebrating a little bit because they like released all of these workers. And so, you know, they're celebrating, they're saying things like, yeah, we did it, we got everybody out of there.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Vermilion done. Workers cease.
And then Jay says, ninja in the swamp.
Ninja in the swamp.
Which isn't an accomplishment at all. It's just where they're at. But he's run out of things to congratulate himself on, and so ninja in the swamp.
Ninja in the swamp.
I have to question, was that in the script or was that ad-libbed? Because if it was ad-libbed, weirdly specific to a scenario that you don't have visuals for yet. But if it was in the script, why did you write that in the script?
Ninja in the swamp.
Another line that is ingrained into my brain.
The fusion dragon.
It's not even an interesting line. It's just, it rattles around in my head, and occasionally, without prompting, I'll just, the fusion dragon. I don't know why. Now, I have already found the best line in all of season 6.
Hey guys, look at how many dogs are.
But I have now also identified the best line in season 7. In the very last episode, Kai and Nia have gone back in time to stop time shenanigans. And so they want to tell the old elemental masters how to defeat these snake people. Luckily for them, their parents are gone because they worked too hard blacksmithing, and so they're too exhausted to fight to save the world. It's stupid, but it's plot convenient because now they can pretend to be their parents, even though their ninja masks hide their faces and their parents have never worn gis like the ones they're wearing. Anyway, so they get up on the roof and they tell Wu and Garmadon, like, here's how you defeat the snakes. And this exchange happens.
I thought the forging of the time blades exhausted you.
We rested.
And it's so good. It's so good. First of all, and no shade to Vincent Tong, but his voices for Kai and for Ray are not terribly distinct. Ray's voice sounds like Kai trying to pretend to be a dad.
I got the power up. Get ready, Dad. Roger that.
And so this scene calls for him to be doing a bad impression of his dad, which is already a bad impression of a dad voice.
Yes, and we've studied these warriors.
This, combined with the blissfully ignorant faces of Wu and Garmadon, who have no idea what is going on and are just taking this at face value, and Kai's response, we rested.
We rested.
Mwah. Beautiful, beautiful exchange. Jumping ahead to the end of season 8, Garmadon gets resurrected, and the first time we really ever see him, he is walking out from like a pile of trash bags, which means that between the end of the last episode and the beginning of this one, Garmadon went down from the building that he was in, walked along the street, turned into an alleyway, and just sat in a pile of trash bags, presumably waiting for the trash guys to come pick up trash so he could scare them. This whole reveal is so dumb. I'd like to think that Garmadon was playing into that meme where it's like, oh guys, I'm such trash. It's very dumb. It's very dumb. Also at the end of season 8, there's this line.
I turned him once. I can turn him again.
That sounds like a really bad idea.
And Kai knows bad ideas. He's full of them.
I agree. It's too dangerous.
Which makes it sound like Zane is agreeing that Kai is dumb.
And Kai knows bad ideas. He's full of them.
I agree.
Like, for a second, I thought he was gonna go like, yes, I agree. Kai should not be trusted to make a plan because he is very inept at these sorts of tasks. Team dynamic would be a little bit different. Oh, he fell over. How long has he been falling over? Has that been the whole video? I'm sorry. The next unrelated note is that March of the Oni is just good. If you haven't watched March of the Oni in a while, watch March of the Oni. It's good. It's like they thought about what they wanted to do this season and they gave everybody something to do and then they did it. And it's only 4 episodes, so there's no pointless fluff in there. It's got some really good dramatic beats. The only weak point is the villains, which could have been a lot stronger. But also, like, I get that the focus is supposed to be on our core team, so, you know, villains might have detracted from that a little bit, especially with the reduced runtime. The scene at the end with all the yellow flowers and everything, so pretty. It's just good stuff, man. Season 11 is quite a mixed bag, but one thing I did have to write down is that there's legit just an interview with a giant flame snake in this season, and like the flame snake agrees to the interview and states their motives and purpose.
What is your real purpose in our city?
We have come to cause suffering and pain.
And it's so out there. And I love it.
And pain.
It's good. This is good stuff, guys. Also, while I was watching the Ice chapter, I had an idea. I'm not saying this necessarily would have been better or would have worked. I think it would have been an interesting dynamic, though. Instead of holding off on the Zane backstory until towards the end after the reveal has happened, I would sort of alternate point of views, spend some time with the main team, and then cut away to Zane's backstory. Only you don't tell the audience that the Zane portion isn't happening at the same time as the main team story. At first, you think this is all happening in roughly the same timeline. Zane arrives, he interacts with these locations, and then you see the ninja team interacting with that same location later that episode. And so you kind of feel like, oh gosh, they're just missing each other. But after a while, you notice that some things are different. Some of the locations have noticeably aged from the Zane clips. And as the season goes on, you realize these Zane segments are happening way further back than the ninja ones. So at first it kind of misleads you away from thinking that Zane is the Ice Emperor, but it eventually leads you to making that conclusion before the reveal happens. It's a way to make your audience feel smart and also, you know, don't make the reveal feel like such a gotcha moment. Cause you know, as much as Ninjago loves its dumb twists, they're not good. In Prime Empire, I just wrote that Okino is awesome. He has a better arc in the 4 episodes that he's in than, like, any of our main characters do for the whole show. He's such a likable character and he's so awesome. Okino's just good. Enough said. Also, this line, beautiful.
The clouds. Lies.
Clouds. Lies. One of my notes just said Bento is a soft boy, so I mean it's true. But here is my main grievance with Seabound. The sort of climactic heightening of the stakes is Jay drowning. But that's not really what happens. Jay is underwater for a long period of time, and we even see when he can't hold his breath anymore, and so he breathes in water, which, you know, is drowning. But when he gets to the surface, he's not like unconscious or anything. He's also not coughing. Like, you know, if you get water accidentally in your lungs, your reflex is to cough it out. So neither of the things that logically would make sense to happen. Jay has just breathed in what we later learn is a ton of water, and yet his body's response seems to be to have like a sore throat. I don't know, it's played like he's contracted some disease and not that he was actively drowning. This is not how drowning works. This is not a sustained thing that you have multiple hours to mull over and consider and whatever. There are only so many things that would happen in this scenario, and this is not one of them. And on the one hand, like, it's a kid's show, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just meant to heighten the stakes. If the writers don't know how drowning works, the writers don't know how drowning works. Except they prove that they do know how drowning works. Earlier in the season, Kai spends a prolonged period underwater, and when he gets pulled out, he is unconscious. Like he should be if he inhaled a large volume of water. And you know what? They respond appropriately. Little Nelson performs CPR. That's what you're supposed to do! And wouldn't you know it, CPR works, and he wakes up and he coughs out the water like would happen if you... Guys! You proved that you knew how drowning worked, and you showed the audience how drowning works so that in the climax of the show, you could completely ignore how drowning works. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The only reason this weird thing is happening with Jay is that they wanted Nia to have time to do some self-reflection and then say goodbye and Jay be conscious for it. But like, this wouldn't be hard to fix. You could just have her already contemplating merging with the ocean to defeat the villain throughout the climax. And then when Jay is drowning, they pull him out, he is unconscious, they try CPR, it doesn't work, and so it's more of a split-second decision. I cannot explain how nuts this drives me. Moving on to Crystallized, I could not help but write down how much I love the new ninja. These guys are awesome. You guys are just mean.
Remember, ninja always keep trying.
A realization that I made on this rewatch is that they seem like they're from Prime Empire. It explains the bright color scheme and the speech pattern and the overly long introductory phrase, their over cooperation and support of each other, like it all adds up. These guys are from Prime Empire.
Darn, she escaped.
Like, I don't know that for sure they are in canon, but it definitely makes sense. And also, I know they're kind of meant to be antagonists because they're sort of replacing the ninja, but you know what? They're justified in doing that. They are currently better at ninja-ing than the ninja, and the ninja team has been out of commission for upwards of a year. It makes sense that somebody else would step up to protect the city. I'm sorry, it makes sense. They're not doing a bad thing here. Now, the fact that they are backed by the government is inherently shady. That is weird, and I don't like that, but I don't think that the new ninja themselves are inherently in the wrong. And yeah, they're a bit condescending to the ninja.
We really admire you old-timers. You're the reason we got into this business.
But I don't know, it's out of ignorance rather than malice. They're a young new generation, and especially if they're from Prime Empire, they have only existed in the world for like a year or two at most. And yeah, the ninja are out of it. Like, the wording is a little bit callous, but none of what they're saying is wrong. They're doing their best, and they're clearly inspired by the ninja. They assumed that they have retired because essentially they had, and yeah, they've got a little bit of an ego on them, but they have done good work and they work together really well as a team.
Look out! Orange ninja!
Thanks for the warning, teal ninja.
And you know what? An ego is a little bit of character spice. I like the teal ninja. He is very enjoyable to watch. He is supportive of his team and he's trying to do what's right, even if he is a little bit of a ditz.
You broke the law! And we're here to unbreak it!
I don't know. I love these guys. Like, I can maybe see how they might be annoying for some people, but gosh, I love them. A couple more points on Crystallized. It seems weird to me that we have the exact same tension releasing in the exact same way, like 2 episodes in a row. Skylar is freezing Nia, but her powers don't last forever. And so Zane swoops in at the last minute to freeze her. And then in the next episode, exact same thing again. Like, why? Why did we have this same conflict play out twice right next to each other. That seems like bad writing to me. Especially considering there's a very obvious solution to this problem, which is get a freezer. Yeah, Nia might not fit in a standard size freezer, but anything bigger than that, she probably could. You can go and buy an industrial-sized freezer. Or better yet, you have Pixel, who is established this season to be able to create things ridiculously quickly. She can make a freezer, and even if she somehow couldn't do it super short notice for that first time, she can definitely make a freezer by the second time it happens. And then, you know, you don't have to repeat the same plotline twice. Did you not think of this? Did you think the characters wouldn't think of this? I've got a couple problems with Crystallized. And my last note that I wrote down that was not related to the topic at hand, there's this funny scene where all of the ninja are dressed in black and they're on a mission and nobody can tell who anybody else is. And Lloyd can't tell that Zane is Zane. And this scene plays a little differently when you're binge watching the show, because very recently you watched an episode where the climax was Lloyd looking into the eyes of the Ice Emperor that, for all intents and purposes, does not look like Zane, and realizing that it's Zane. And yet, when they're in ninja costumes and you can see the metal skin,
What are you waiting for, Zane? Freeze the sensors. I'm not Zane.
Lloyd has no idea. His mental capacity may have deteriorated significantly. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed them. I know that watching all of Ninjago in 10 days isn't super crazy. It's not as fast as you could watch it, but it is still like an insanely crunched time scale. I'm not sure I would recommend it, but if you have a habit of just picking and choosing your favorite season to rewatch over and over again, I would recommend the experience of watching everything straight through in order. It's an interesting experience and you get to see sort of the evolution of the characters. You notice a lot of cute little nuances. And, you know, if you're paying attention to the female characters, how much they get ignored. That's not really... Hello?